And I didn't know exactly that at the time, so I'm coming in, and I'm zooming into the GPS, going zoom, 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 and I could see the buoys, but it didn't show the number that they're on, like number 17. Well, I didn't know till after that day that if I kept zooming more and more and more and more in, it would finally show that. And I had to memorize the buoys. So all of a sudden they're calling me on the radio, and they're all, vessel, please, what are your intentions? What are you going to do on this buoy? And I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to say. So all of a sudden, I hear this, go hard right! And I go, and I turn the wheel like this, and my deckhand literally takes his shirt, puts it over his head, crawls up in a fetus position, and was shaking. My knees, first time ever in my life, my knees started buckling. I felt a shiver up my body, and it went hard right. I looked to the left, and it was I see this big black thing. You see that? Harbor up there is the port entrance for all of like America, all the big boats for Hyundai and all these big corporations. They send their stuff in, and the wheat and everything comes out there. Well, what they have is called a tug and tow, and they have these tugboats that tow these barges that are literally the size of a city block, and they have these cables around, and they cannot stop. They cannot stop. It takes them like a half hour to stop. Well, he's coming out riding the ebbing tide. He's coming out at probably, I think he was going like 14 knots. I'm coming in at 3 knots because I have a 5-knot current. I'm coming in at 3. He's coming in at full speed, and we just missed by 20 yards. And it was just, oh man. So when I got in, Bubba, my friend, he goes, man, a lot of people are very pissed off at you, Arik. And I go, well, so next thing I did was, the next day I got the local chart, and I memorized the buoy numbers, each single buoy number, to know exactly where I was. And ever since then, I've been able to come in at night and do what I have. But I tell you, man, that's the scariest I've ever been in my life. That's all. Hey, Jason, thanks for getting back to me. So what's interesting about me that's not the norm? Number one, I'm a major international antique dealer that specializes in French, Italian, English, and normally people like that are stuffy people with bow ties or Queenie people, or just kind of not your everyday kind of surfer guy. Well, I was taught that in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s by two of the guys that own the biggest galleries in San Francisco. So I learned 18th, 19th century, quarter-pointed, cabinets, things like that. Really high-end stuff. I deal with Christie's and Sotheby's on a weekly basis, and I think a show could be interesting because all these shows that are out there now, like Pawn Star, I mean, that's nice, but everything's kind of junky, and you look at American Pickers, most of it's garbage, and a show where there's really high-end, European antiques could be very interesting. So I have all these ads, and I have all these people calling me from around the country, and I fly in and I buy these fantastic, rare, and obscure things, and then I usually send them to auction, and nothing stops me. If I've got to stay in a place for a week and I'm low on money, I will sleep in the car. I will shower at a truck stop. Nothing will stop me from getting those antiques. 20 years in the business, man, that's a lot of knowledge. And so another thing is, it's such a soft business what I specialize in, the painted Italian and the Florentine, things like that. But I'm got to read here because I got these notes. But I'm kind of a hard, rugged guy. And then the commercial fishing side, which I don't do anymore, I stopped in 07, that's a whole thing. Now, if you wanted to do something where we commercial fished in the summer and then antiqued all winter long, we could do that. But that's a whole separate deal. I think, because actually those are the two most popular shows that they had, the Deadliest Catch and the antique shows. And where I fished up in Oregon is very, very dangerous and very exciting with all the, the beautiful trees. We drive up from San Francisco and we see all the Pacific Northwest, and then we show the ocean. I mean, that could be a very interesting thing. We show the dangerous Columbia River. We show the tuna, all the action. We show them, selling to LA to the big sushi distributors, guys speaking French on the phone, 4 Japanese guys, a guy with a gun guarding the big, distributorship downtown Los Angeles, and then all of a sudden next thing you know, I'm, at Christie's in a suit. I mean, that's interesting. Or we could just do straight antiques, kind of, going around and buying things like that. That could be interesting as well. Other than that, I think, let me think about it a little bit more, but I think that's kind of a start, because I do know that America does need a very high-end show. People are infatuated with high-end stuff. They've always been infatuated with the things I have had, and I'm backing up 15, 18 years, you know. So now with all these other shows, more people are interested in the antiques, and all the shows they have, they're just not, you know, there's more beer drinkers than wine drinkers. So I understand where they're going on that, and they're doing fine. But I think if they wanted to sell it to Europe and stuff, and the networks wanted to, you know, sell the show, the Europeans, they don't want to see all this garbage. They want to see, you know, major high-end things that were brought over years ago in the 60s and 70s by importers that are popping up available now. And I just got a feeling we could do a really high-end show, and I think I'd be a great host, a great, it'd be my own show. It could be interesting. I mean, also the design part. You see my website, Rue Michelle Antiques. Look at what I did right here with the design. Look at my portfolio online, and I have way more photos. That alone is enough. Just a design show with high-end antiques. There is no design shows with 18th, 19th century French, Italian, English antiques. There's just not. And by the way, those guys don't quite have the knowledge I have. So it's not their fault. They just weren't trained the right way. So not only do they not have the knowledge, maybe they could put things together, but not quite the way I could. And I think you combine that design thing with an antique thing, that's another type of a show. So we could either do just a design, or a design with high-end antiques, or investing with antiques is what I wrote about 6 years ago, where we go around, we find real high-end things, we put them into design, they can live with them. It's like investments you can live with. That could be a good one. Instead of putting a stock certificate up on your wall, how about a pair of 18th century Venetian mirrors? There's really hasn't been a show with high-end antiques, regardless, no matter if they're designing, no matter if they're finding things, selling things. I mean, every once in a while something pops in. I mean, but that's it. I mean, maybe the roadshow had a few things that were high-end, but by and large, I'm not going to use the word garbage because that's me, but it's pretty junky, okay? And also, people start in with low-end things, and then after a while they get sick of it, so they want to learn more about the higher-end things. So now America's ready for high-end things, okay? I've seen it in all fields of collecting and antiques. Dealers start with low-end things, and they finally, you know, they get into high-end things. That's the same with America. America wants to see high-end things, and I'm the guy to do that for you. Oh, one other thing, Jason. Some of the interesting people I have met have been just phenomenal. I've met Sam Malouf, who was the first, one of the first American modern furniture makers, considered the most prominent one. He died last year. He's in the Smithsonian. He's in the Met. He did ones for Reagan. He's considered the biggest ever woodworkers. I got into some things from him. Flew into Hawaii, bought the first chairs he ever made for his mentor, Millard Sheets. Then I got a call from the drummer, or the sound guy from Guns N' Roses, about these really interesting and rare photos from Natalie McLennan, the most paid call girl ever in the history of New York City, $2,000 an hour. She's the one that took down the governor of New York City. So by this famous photographer, Peter Beard. Peter Beard's work goes for thousands, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a pop. I got these really rare things. I flew into Florida with $5,000 cash, met him at his mom's house down in, you know, whatever, and bought these things. And then recently I flew up to Yuba City. It used to be is the capital of the dried fruit in America, you know, sunsweet and all that, and bought this wonderful calligraphy woodblock from a princess of Japan. The last Meiji emperor of Japan had this daughter who was a liaison between the Korean princess and the last emperor, and she was a hidden princess. And she wanted, the Russians were down there in China, and she wanted to study ballet, and they taught her ballet and all this stuff. And they said, well, you know, the best ballet teachers in the world are in Germany. So she wanted to go there. So she begged her uncle, her father, please let me go, please let me go. And they said, no, you're not going to be able to go over there. So she goes, well, how about Chicago? And they go, well, maybe. So she ran away. They found her, surrounded her by horses. She begged and pleaded to let her go to Chicago. They put her on a train where they had an arranged marriage for a Manchurian